What's up, chosen ones? I have a thinking question, one that could be taboo to some, but I don't find it taboo. Taboo. And the question is God real? Again, is God real? You know, many people question if God is real due to how the world is, the condition the world is, things that happen to the innocent, the ones who are guilty of atrocious crimes are let off free. So many people always wonder, you know, is God real? And that's a good question to ask. But my answer is, doesn't matter. That's always been my answer to this question. When people say, is God real? My reply is always, does it matter? Same thing with the Bible. Is the Bible real? And I say, does it matter? And the reason why I answer that question like that, if the Bible or whatever the case may be, if it's real or not, me asking if it matters, the sole reason is because if it doesn't matter, would it change anything? Again, if God, Jesus, the Bible, religion, well, let's take religion out of it because that's a little bit deeper. But, you know, if God, the Bible, Jesus, or any kind of holy text, scripture, if it wasn't real, would it matter? That's why I always ask. That's always my answer. Would it matter? And truth of the matter is, how I see it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter and it doesn't change anything. It doesn't matter if God is real. And it doesn't matter if the Bible or whatever holy text scripture is real. It doesn't matter. Does it change how you treat others? If it changes how you treat other people, then that speaks a lot about your character, who you are as a person. What if heaven and hell isn't real? Would it change how you treat people? I feel like that's the actual position. That's the actual reasoning of people asking if God is real. Because if God isn't real, then people feel like they could treat anybody however, or there's no answers. There's no reason to be kind. There's no reason for hope. You know, we're just lost. It's almost like an answer to their victimhood. And partly, this is why I believe that's why they say, lean not onto your own understanding. Because when you believe in God, or you believe in a holy text, or you believe it has some kind of validity to life, you understand everything is not going to make sense. You're going to understand that. So instead of you trying to wrap your head around things that don't make sense or find a reasoning for some things that just don't make sense to you, it allows you just to sit back and relax. Again, it just allows you to sit back and relax. I say, if God isn't real, will it change the way I treat others? Would I start treating people how I don't want to be treated? No. I would still treat people kind. I would still want the best of people. So again, does that change? Does it matter? No. What changes if God isn't real? What changes? And I feel that if there is a heaven and hell, right? But if you answered your question that something would change if there is no God, then that determines kind of where your heart lies. Again, if you're the type of person who said, well, if God isn't real, heaven and hell isn't real, that allows me to open up the door and just treat people how I want to treat them. Don't matter. Well, that just defies that you're a fucked up individual. Point blank period. Point blank period. That's what it really boils down to. That you're a fucked up individual. Now, like I said, how I see it, would I treat people differently? No. Does it matter to me? No. Shakespeare once said, a rose by a different name still smells sweet. So that's for people who get caught up on the names, God, divine, Jesus, Yahweh, this. People always get caught up on the names and you have to get the name right, or this wasn't the name at that time. It doesn't matter. If God is real, this big, powerful person, this big, powerful entity, do you think he's going to get caught up in what you call him? Do you really think he's going to get caught up if what you call him? That's like you have a little baby and the baby messes up your name and don't get your name right or calls you something different, but but it's calling you. Are you going to trip about the baby calling you something that might not be your exact name, or are you going to answer the call? And I see it like that with God. Does God get the tripping? Is God petty because we didn't call him by his desired name, or you know or is God petty to the point where we might not 100% believe in him, but in our actions, the way we carry out our actions, the way we live our lives, the way we treat people, is in totality with how, and is aligned with how he would see fit? Again, you may not believe in God, but the way you live your life will be congruent with how God sees fit. Does it matter? No. No, it don't matter. So is God real? Chosen ones, to be honest with you, like I've been saying, it don't matter. The thing, or the question that we should ask ourselves again is, if he is not real, or if God is not real, the entity is not real, does it change your heart posture? Does it change how you treat people? Does it change how you live your life? Anyways, this is Rich. I hope this can help somebody today. Y'all be safe out there. Love and blessings.